Morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock here in the UK. Good to have your company wherever you're watching us in the world today. All eyes are on the 21st of June here and whether the Prime Minister will decide to delay Freedom Day. But it's a precarious situation with the Delta variant on the rise. After the Environment Secretary told us we should holiday at home this year, we'll be speaking to the Housing Secretary, Robert Jenrick, today about lockdown, vaccines, holidays, weddings and Sausagegate. He joins us in just a moment. Also for you this morning, going to be looking more at this. Fuming travel industry leaders are demanding the traffic light system must be scrapped. We'll speak to Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary and take you to a quarantine hotel where a red list traveller is settling in for a 10-day stay. And
if we don't do this, there will be nothing left to save.
Get your popcorn ready. The summer's biggest blockbusters are here. The founder of View Cinemas takes us through the best of the bunch at 8:45. It's Wednesday, the 9th of June. As decision time looms on the ending of lockdown, do rising COVID cases in the northwest signal a delay? You shall go to the ball. Andrew Lloyd Webber says his Cinderella show will go ahead on the 21st of June, come what may, and he's prepared to be arrested for it. Sausage Wars showdown talks with the EU as the government battles to avoid a trade war with Brussels. Help us, my sisters need strength. The family of twins attacked by a crocodile in Mexico make crowdfunding appeal to help pay for their medical fees. Revealed the text messages about an alleged mega drug drop off a cargo ship following an international crime sting.
Good morning. For many of us, it's going to be another warm, sunny and fine day, and temperatures will continue to rise. Could be quite hot by the weekend.
And so the clock is ticking down to the moment the government must decide whether to go ahead with so-called Freedom Day on the 21st of June. Reports this morning suggest the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, of course, has come round to the idea of a 4-week delay to the lockdown lifting. The Treasury tells us its position remains that we need to see what the data says. The government is also under pressure from the travel industry, with industry leaders calling for the traffic light system to be scrapped altogether. That comes as the Delta variant is changing the domestic picture. Millions of people in the northwest are now under a new package of support, including increased testing and guidance on limiting travel. Inzamam Rashid reports from Manchester.
12 days to go until we lift fully out of lockdown. But today, the northwest is waking up with additional COVID guidance. The Indian variant continues to cause concern and force the government to send up an emergency response package to help.
I want to encourage everyone in Manchester and Lancashire to get the tests on offer. We know that this approach can work. We've seen it work in South London and in Bolton in stopping a rise in the number of cases.
The announcement of extra vaccines, more testing and military support is welcome, but the package comes with caution. Minimise travel and only meet people outside where possible. These aren't local lockdown restrictions, but it feels like it for many.
I think we've got to stop hitting one part of the country against the other. And I think, where we have spikes, we have to do more of this, not put people into localised lockdowns.
It feels like it's always the same areas. Why? I don't understand that. Again, I'm not a conspiracist or anything, but why? Why is it always the same areas?
For some Conservative backbenchers who are critical of delaying lifting restrictions, the new guidance is up for interpretation.
Now, I've read the guidance. It's advice, it's blanket advice to everybody. Do you think that actually people should make their own decisions based on whether they have had 0, 1 or 2 vaccinations, something that the government actually is silent on?
Well, I do, because clearly, if you're in one of the groups, for example, that's at risk of becoming seriously ill from COVID, and you haven't been vaccinated, firstly, my advice would be go and get vaccinated. But secondly, if you haven't been vaccinated, you should clearly be more careful. If you've been vaccinated and had both of your vaccinations, you're clearly more protected. And I think people need to make take those things into account as they make judgments about how they live their lives.
This region has been here before. It's vulnerable to restrictions once again, and over 4 million people find themselves staring down the barrel of a step backwards. A big question mark remains over whether we move forward together as a nation, or if this already bruised region is once again left behind. Inzamam Rashid, Sky News, Manchester.
The Housing Secretary, Robert Jenrick, is with us. I want to talk about Manchester in just a second, if we may, Mr Jenrick. Good morning. But first, Freedom Day. That's what everybody is talking about. Looking at this morning's papers, complete confusion. Mr Gove saying if he was a betting man, the restrictions would be relaxed. Rishi Sunak saying potentially that he'd accept a 4-week delay. The backbencher, powerful backbencher Steve Baker saying, don't you dare. What's your view?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the discussions that are happening within the Cabinet, but the Prime Minister is reviewing the data and more data is coming in, which is very important. We created this 5-week period between the stages of the roadmap, and that has actually proved invaluable on this occasion because it's a finely balanced decision, and we need to see that data of cases, which are clearly rising, but the link to hospitalisations and ultimately to death. So the PM is reviewing that ahead of the decision point, which is going to be the 14th of June. And at that point, of course, he'll let everybody know what the ultimate decision is.
But you're a Secretary of State, you have a view. What's your view?
Well, I'm not going to give my view. Obviously, those views are made privately within the Cabinet. But what I do think is important is that we don't throw away the gains that we've made. So we're going to take a cautious approach. But if we can proceed with that reopening on the 21st of June, of course, all of us would love to see that for our own lives and the livelihoods that depend on that further reopening.
Yeah, something you will have a view on. Andrew Lloyd Webber on the front page of the Telegraph today. I'm sure you've seen it. He's launching his multi-million-pound production of Cinderella on the West End stage. He says that is going to happen come hell or high water, no matter what you decide about the 21st of June. And if you want, the police can come and arrest us. If the restrictions aren't lifted, should the police arrest him?
Well, I completely empathise with Andrew Lloyd Webber and, more importantly, all of the people who work in the cultural sector, people who work in theatres and other venues for whom it's been a very difficult year, amongst other parts of the economy. We want to get them open. We are doing pilots. We want to get those theatres open, so great new productions like Cinderella can open. I know that people are desperate to go to them. Tickets are selling fast for all those productions because people have been away too long. But you just got a few more days to wait until the judgment that the Prime Minister is going to make on the basis of the data.
And in answer to my question, should he be arrested if he breaks those rules?
Well, look, I'm sure that Andrew Lloyd Webber's comments are made in the heat of the moment.
He's very serious.
I'm sure he feels this very strongly, but look, we all have to do our best to abide by.
Should he be arrested? He says, come and arrest us.
Well, look, we all have to abide by the rules.
So that's a yes, isn't it?
No, I'm not going to get into speculation about that, but we want to get those theatres back open, obviously, as quickly as we can, to support people like Andrew Lloyd Webber so that we can all enjoy brilliant productions in the West End once again.
What about those 50,000 weddings that are at risk if we are postponed for another month? What would you say to prospective bride and grooms at the moment?
Well, weddings can go ahead right now, but with a maximum of 30 guests. And
people rang in and said, sorry, you can't come.
No, I appreciate that. That's very tough, and I would like to see the number of people attending weddings increase. We're giving that careful thought. That will be one of the topics that the PM will address on the 14th of June. So again, people who are looking forward to those weddings don't have very long to wait for an answer.
So what's your advice to those people who are, hovering with the red marker pen over who can no longer be invited potentially?
Well, we've always said that the roadmap is subject to review of the data. That is what is happening right now. So whether it's weddings or international travel or any of these other important topics, you always have to wait until the judgment is made on the basis of the data at the decision point. So I wouldn't make plans until you've heard from the PM if that's important to you. But weddings can go ahead right now, but just with a maximum of 30 guests.
What can go ahead in Manchester and Lancashire right now, Greater Manchester, I should say? Meet outdoors and minimise travel is what people are being told. What does minimising travel actually mean? What's that look like?
Well, these are guidelines. So we're offering some extra advice to people who live in that area. This isn't the law, but you can clearly see that cases are rising in Manchester. And so we're asking people to use their personal judgment, personal responsibility in order to help us to bring down the number of cases. And we've done that in Bolton very successfully. A huge effort by people there, great work by the local council and the NHS. So we want to replicate that model in Greater Manchester. Clearly, although Bolton is the biggest town in England, Greater Manchester is a much larger conurbation, and so it's going to be a big job. But we're going to give all the support we possibly can through the NHS, through surge testing, through armed forces support as well, to try to do that. And people can play their part by limiting their contact with other people, taking that guidance seriously, and above all, by going out and getting vaccinated, having your second jab, if you haven't already, if you're a younger person now who's eligible, going and get vaccinated. Because we're really in a race between the vaccine rollout and the virus, and in those places in particular where cases are rising, you need to go and get vaccinated as quickly as you can.
I hope you're not saying I'm old because I've had both vaccines.
Not at all.
OK,
no.
just checking.
But it is great news, Kay, that we've got this huge surge in young people going to get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
So we've seen 500,000 young people registering, booking their appointments just within a matter of days since Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, announced that younger age groups are now eligible.
And lots of those young people want to go on holiday abroad. I am confused what the guidance is from the government on foreign holidays. What is it?
Well, let me be clear. You shouldn't be booking holidays to countries that are currently on either the amber list or the red list. You can go to the admittedly relatively small number of countries on the green list. Even there, be aware that this isn't a normal summer for holidays. We are reviewing that list every 3 weeks. And so I would advise people to look for travel operators who can offer flexibility, would be able to offer rescheduling or repayments if something changes. We would like to open up that green list to more countries, but we've obviously got to do so cautiously. So we're reviewing cases and hospitalisations in those countries, and also looking at whether those countries have the level of genomic sequencing that's required to give us comfort that there aren't new variants that might be of concern to us. And if we can open up more, we obviously will do, because we'd love to give people more opportunities to travel.
George Eustace yesterday sat there, front page of the Times now as a result, saying we should holiday at home this year.
Well, I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion, perfectly understandably, that this isn't a normal summer. Opportunities for international travel are going to be more limited, and so why not enjoy everything that this country has to offer this summer? That's probably the decision that I'm going to make. Many other people will be doing the same. But we would like to offer people the opportunity to go to more of those green list countries, but that's very dependent on what's happening there. And we can't control the vaccination rollout in those countries. We obviously can't control the spread of new variants, and we have to do everything that we can to protect all that we're achieving here domestically.
So, on balance, the correct decision is to holiday at home this year, and that's what you're going to do?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's a matter for individuals. We've set up a framework, which I hope is clear, which is that you should really only be booking, well, you should only be booking holidays to countries that are currently on the green list. And even there, you should be aware that they're subject to review every 3 weeks. So you have to try to either exercise caution when you do that, or try to get holidays that you can get rescheduled or refunded should something change. So for many people, they may conclude that the safest option is to enjoy what this country has to offer this summer.
And that's the right thing to do?
Well, it's not a question of what's right or wrong. I'm trying to give the best possible advice to people. People will make their own judgments. You can choose to book a holiday to a country that's on the green list, but there's always a degree of risk involved in that because those countries are reviewed, as we've seen with Portugal, and things can move quite quickly.
Is the Prime Minister holidaying abroad this year?
I don't know. I haven't asked him, but I know that he's going to Cornwall.
I
know that he's going to... Well, he's got a lot of other things on his mind. I know that he's going to Cornwall today, to Carbis Bay, which is a place that he knows well and loves, ready to welcome the leaders of the G7 to the United Kingdom.
Which brings us on to Brexit and sausage wars, as it's being described. Lord Frost, the Brexit Secretary, is meeting his counterpart today, and the PM is meeting President Biden tomorrow, I think. A UK-US trade deal, we're led to believe, relies on the outcome of this sausage wars. What an absolute mess this is.
Well, look, we want to see a sensible, pragmatic outcome to this. When we signed up to the protocol, it was always envisaged that there would be hard edges that needed to be shaved off and ironed out in the weeks ahead. And in fact, the protocol committed both sides to using best endeavours to sort out these sorts of things. And that's exactly what we want. We've put forward some solutions to the EU. We hope that they will come to the table today. As you say, Maros Sefcovic, The EU's interlocutor is meeting with Lord Frost, and we want to try to sort this out, because it can't be right that a supermarket in Northern Ireland can't have access to the same goods as one in Wales, Scotland or England, and a sausage can't travel from Bangor in Wales to Bangor in Northern Ireland. We must be able to sort that out.
Indulge me and listen to what Michael Gove had to say about it.
We need to make sure that the sausages that our supermarket chains provide to citizens in Northern Ireland can continue to flow. We've secured that agreement with the Commission, and that means that some of the disruption which people feared might occur after the end of the transition period won't occur.
Well, Michael Gove was absolutely right. I don't think either side, when we signed up to the protocol, envisaged that the EU would interpret it in such a rigid and unpragmatic way, and we're asking them to show some common sense and enable something as simple as some chilled meats like a sausage to travel from GB to Northern Ireland, because the protocol was always about ensuring the free flow of goods between GB and Northern Ireland, as it was between Northern Ireland and the European Union. And I hope that we can sort this out, because there are also things even more important than sausages at stake here. For example, medicines. It really would be absurd if a cancer drug struggled to be dispatched from the mainland of the United Kingdom to Northern Ireland. We need to sort this out now.
So it's the EU's fault for sticking to the letter of the agreement?
Well, the protocol itself envisaged that there would be sensible, pragmatic discussions entered into in good faith, and that it would evolve with time. And to some extent, that's happened. We've actually made a lot of progress on a number of fronts. But on this front, there now needs to be a resolution, and I hope these discussions today will take that forwards.
Although you were told by 3 former Prime Ministers and indeed the CBI that it would be much more complicated, and we were told by the Prime Minister it was an oven-ready deal, we have until the end of June to sort this out. If the UK unilaterally extends that grace period, which we have done on other aspects of this agreement, then we're hearing from the EU this morning that they will retaliate strongly with legal action, in their words. How seriously should the British government take that threat?
Well, look, we want to work in good faith with our European friends and neighbours. We don't want to get into legal action, and it would be absurd if there were legal cases over whether a sausage manufactured in Birmingham could be exported to be sold in Sainsbury's in Belfast. That doesn't make sense. That is not a good use of the time of either country. So I hope that common sense will prevail, and the discussions that are going to happen later today, the first meeting of this new council, will be the opportunity to break the deadlock, or at least to move in the right direction. Yeah,
fantastic alliteration, but the EU will say, yeah, whatever, we are going to threaten you with legal action. Meantime, the other side of the pond, they're saying, unless you sort out this deal, there is no US-UK trade deal.
Well, look, I think if you're in respect of the UK and the United States, our interests are aligned here. Both countries have an unshakable commitment to the Good Friday Agreement, and that's what we want to preserve and support here. The Good Friday Agreement was clear that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom for as long as its residents want to be so, and that trade should flow freely between the two nations. And that's what we want to see preserved. And so I think President Biden and Boris Johnson will be entirely aligned in their position. We want a sensible outcome to this, which preserves the position of Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom. And if you think about it, it would be ridiculous for a US president to even consider that something grown in Alabama couldn't be moved across the state border to a neighbouring state, or a medicine produced in California couldn't be flown to be jabbed into the arm of somebody in New York. So I think the President and others will see the good sense of the British position, and hopefully all the parties will come to a resolution as quickly as we can.
So whose fault is it that there's a border in the Irish Sea?
Well, we have signed up to a protocol which enabled Northern Ireland, quite rightly, to remain within the same customs territory of the United Kingdom. And that's the simple principle that we're trying to enforce here.
OK, we're out of time. Everybody's rushing me, but I just wanted to ask you very quickly about Towns Fonds. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to say a big thank you to the people of Cornwall for hosting the G7. It's going to be a fantastic event, the first meeting of the leaders of the big Western open societies for almost 2 years. And Cornwall and Cornish people, Cornish police, have got huge efforts to stage this event, which I think will be a brilliant one. And so today the Prime Minister is announcing a series of town deals to support communities like St Ives, like Penzance, like Truro, so that they can have transformative investments in local infrastructure, in culture, in green infrastructure, cycle lanes and pathways along the coast. Really important things which will help to build back better that beautiful part of the country.
You're upbeat this morning, aren't you? You're holidaying at home this year, are you?
I think so, yeah. I might even go to Cornwall.
Oh, there we go. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us.
You too.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thank you. Still to come on the programme for you this morning. Dr. David Nabarro, COVID-19 envoy to the World Health Organization, joins us at 7:45. Are rising cases in the northwest a sign of potential roadmap delays? We speak to Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham at 8:20. At 9:45, I'll be speaking to BAFTA-winning documentary producer Stephen McGinty about the untold story of the world's deepest submarine rescue. Now, she said it is a social media post she never thought she'd have to make. The older sister of British twins in hospital in Mexico after being attacked by a crocodile is crowdfunding for their medical fees. The GoFundMe says the details of the ordeal are still not fully known, but one of the sisters has water on her lungs and the other is in a medically induced coma. Writing on the page, their older sister says this: "My family is overwhelmed with the pride that Georgia managed to take the brave action she did, but now are faced with the difficulty of travelling to Mexico to support them and pay for their medical care. There as yet isn't clarification on how much we'll need, but already it feels very overwhelming." Mel and Georgia, goes on, are in real need of their parents and those most amazing medical assistants we can get to turn this awful accident away from tragedy. We're going to be talking about that in more detail. Apparently, as I said, details very sketchy, but it appears that they were swimming in a lagoon after dark. One of the sisters was taken by a crocodile. The other one, who's a diver, went under the surface to help her sister, dragging her back to the boat that they jumped off. Crocodile came and attacked them again. Cannot even believe it, can you? Stuff of nightmares. More on that, as I said, throughout the course of the morning. Also, our other main stories for you today, and at least 10 people have been killed and 18 injured in an armed attack on an NGO base in Afghanistan. The attack in the northern Baghlan province targeted mine workers as part of the US and UK NGO trust HALO. Sky News understands no British or US nationals were involved in the incident. MPs and peers are calling for a ban of the sale of cigarettes to under-21s. The cross-party report published today urges the government to use the opportunity provided by Brexit to become a world leader in tobacco control. They're calling it a smoking epidemic. Proof of full coronavirus vaccination will be one way of gaining entry to a sporting event for the first time on Sunday for England's opening Euro 2020 match against Croatia. Another option for supporters will be a negative lateral flow test taken within 48 hours of the game. Wembley will still only be at 25% capacity, 22,500 people. President of the United States is due to arrive in the UK later on ahead of the G7 summit. Joe Biden arriving in Cornwall late tonight. The first bilateral for the G7 summit is due to take place between President Biden and the PM on Thursday. On Friday, the summit officially begins, with most foreign leaders arriving in Cornwall. This will include leaders of countries that aren't part of the G7, including Australia. The first plenary meeting will take place on Saturday, and the group will have their family photo taken, as we often see, definitely with social distancing. Talks will continue into Sunday, with the summit wrapping up. And later on Sunday, President Joe Biden will meet the Queen at Windsor Castle. Some of the biggest websites went down across the world yesterday thanks to a glitch at a little-known company that helps the internet to operate smoothly. Amazon, Netflix and Spotify were among the sites that went offline, along with several leading news outlets and the official UK government site. Cloud computing provider Fastly said it was behind the issue. Now, Dua Lipa has been named the UK's most played artist of 2020. Ooh, a bit loud, wasn't it? First thing, her second album, Future Nostalgia, was released 4 days after the start of lockdown in March last year. It ends Ed Sheeran's reign. He had held since the title in 2017. Time for a quick look at what's happening as far as the weather is concerned now. Kirsty was telling us it's going to be fantastic towards the end of the week. What about today, Kirsty? Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, Kay. It actually looks fantastic for many of us at the moment as well. The downsides of summer weather will be very high UV levels, increasing risk of grass pollen as well. But yeah, I'm hearing in my ear. We're all quite glad to see some sunshine.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. The Azores high means we've got some very fine and settled weather to come for many, with temperatures increasing as we head towards the weekend. It is a little bit cloudier in the north and west, though. Here we've got some Atlantic weather fronts bringing thicker cloud, spots of rain and drizzle, maybe some heavier rain for time in western Scotland. So cooler, breezier, cloudier, the rain at times in the north and west, but temperatures are rising further south and east, up to around 26 or 27 in the London area. So feeling quite warm and humid indeed. Could be the very high UV levels to watch out for today, increasing risk of grass pollen as well. A lot of low cloud mist and murk through Irish Sea coast and English Channel coast as well. A very small chance of a shower for the Midlands and Northern England this afternoon. Dry for many tonight, apart from the very far north and west, but quite a lot of cloud coming in. Bit of a muggy night, grey start tomorrow, brightness to come.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Do you remember this story from yesterday? Text messages between crime bosses organising $1 million shipments of drugs. They've now been revealed by the US Department of Justice. The messages were sent on an app set up by the FBI, clever, in conjunction with other global authorities as part of Operation Ironside, with more than 800 people arrested so far around the world. Joining us now is our Australia reporter, Gabriella Power, who brought this story to us yesterday. Goodness me, this keeps going, doesn't it?
Certainly does, Kay. For the past 3 years, authorities have been monitoring the messages between criminals and underworld figures as they plotted drug deals, plotted murders, and they were doing this by communicating on this encrypted app that you mentioned called Anom. Now, at its peak, there were 17,000 users worldwide, 1,600 here in Australia. So police have moved in. We've seen raids in every capital city in Australia. There have been arrests made in 18 countries, and as you mentioned, 800 criminal figures have now been detained. The FBI is praising Australia's efforts, saying that it wouldn't be able to get the result that it has if it wasn't for Australia. And our Defence Minister says that this shows Australia is punching above its weight, that we have one of the most successful law enforcement agencies in the world. Now, there has been hundreds of people arrested, and it is expected that we'll see more people charged in the coming weeks, Kay.
Okay, for now, thank you. Thanks a lot. Coming up shortly, Palm Sandhu rose to be one of the most senior Asian women in the police service. We'll hear her story next.
Climate, security, trade. How best to rebuild shattered economies after the pandemic and start looking to the future. These are major issues facing a truly significant meeting of world leaders as they come together on the Cornish coast. Will agreements made here stand firm or simply fade away like castles in the sand? The G7 Summit on Sky News.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. We take you to the heart of stories that shape our world.
Our job is to tell the truth.
This is a forgotten front line. They are dying here.
Here it comes. Cut.
Boy, have we got some interesting ways of showing you what's going on. Their message to us, get ready. Nothing like apocalypse.
Instructing you to stay at home.
I can't believe we did that. It's pretty special, isn't it?
The wind was like pulling us out of that little room.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
I'm Greg Milam, Sky's US correspondent here in Los Angeles. It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal. Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
I've seen the dark side of America. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. I've seen heartbreaking human stories.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
Hello, my name is Nadia Frontier.
My name is Ryan Matthews. I'm the Marine Assistant at Rotherham Research Station,
Which is to the west of the West Antarctic Peninsula. So far I've been here for 5 months and it is an absolutely wonderful experience.
My name is Fatma Zilzila, the founder of Ecostar from Kuwait, where we face many environmental problems related to waste pollution, deforestation, and lack of information. We are collecting recyclables from houses, schools, and businesses in order to recycle them. In exchange of your recyclables, you get a tree.
Hello again, everybody. This morning we are talking about whether Andrew Lloyd Webber will be arrested and also sausage wars with the EU. What on earth am I talking about? Well, it's decision time looming for the government over whether to proceed with the final stage of lifting England's lockdown. Andrew Lloyd Webber has said he will open his theatres regardless on the 21st of June and is prepared to be arrested if authorities try to intervene. I discussed that with the Housing Secretary a few moments ago.
I'm sure that Andrew Lloyd Webber's comments are made in the heat of the moment.
He's very serious.
I'm sure he feels this very strongly, but look, we all have to do our best to abide by.
Should he be arrested? He says, come and arrest us.
Well, look, we all have to abide by the rules.
So that's a yes, isn't it?
I'm not going to get into speculation about that, but we want to get those theatres back open, obviously, as quickly as we can, and to support people like Andrew Lloyd Webber so that we can all enjoy brilliant productions in the West End once again.
Fabulous. Tamara Cohen is here. Andrew Lloyd Webber being led out of one of his theatres in handcuffs is not what the government wants to see.
No, and this shows a growing backlash against what appears to be many people's view are softening up for a delay to the lifting of all social distancing restrictions on the 21st of June. We just heard Robert Jenrick there saying we're taking a cautious approach. Nothing is set in stone. We mustn't throw away all the gains that we've made. Obviously, yesterday we saw new measures for 6 million people in Greater Manchester and Lancashire. I think there is a feeling among a lot of Tory MPs that this is going to be delayed for a couple of weeks. And we're seeing the hospitality industry now saying we really cannot survive this. Andrew Lloyd Webber saying he's going to open his 6 West End venues, put on his production of Cinderella, regardless of what the government says. If that goes ahead, I think we're going to see some really difficult scenes there.
That really puts them under pressure, doesn't it? Because, you know, everybody knows who Andrew Lloyd Webber is. He's doing a production of Cinderella, but he would be breaking the law and the police would be within their rights to go and arrest him. That's tricky. The other thing they've got on their plate is G7 and this Brexit deal or not. Sausage wars, as it's
Absolutely. Sausage wars, no laughing matter in Northern Ireland, where already people are finding that the meat products that used to be exported from the UK are not appearing on supermarket shelves because for a lot of companies the paperwork is very difficult. And now the grace period, so we made this deal, the Brexit deal in December, there was a grace period of 6 months, and that is ending at the end of June in 3 weeks' time. So we're seeing Lord Frost, who's the Brexit minister who negotiated that deal, meeting the EU Commissioner in London today, Maros Šefčovič, to try and iron out some of those issues. Now, back in December, Michael Gove told us this was not a concern, but Robert Jenrick just told us that he thought it was because it's turning out to be quite damaging on the ground. This is what he said.
I don't think either side, when we signed up to the protocol, envisaged that the EU would interpret it in such a rigid and unpragmatic way. And we're asking them to show some common sense and enable something as simple as some chilled meats like a sausage to travel from GB to Northern Ireland, because the protocol was always about ensuring the free flow of goods between GB and Northern Ireland.
So Brexit all over again, essentially. It wasn't all done in the Brexit deal because there's still areas of agreement that need to be worked out, in this case on food and animal products. If it is not resolved, then we're looking at a ban on cold meats from the UK going to Northern Ireland, and on a more serious note, things like medicines, because Northern Ireland has effectively stayed in the EU single market, so it has the EU medicine regulations and not the UK ones. The EU is saying, well, if you want free flow of trade, you need to abide by our rules and do that dynamically, as in every time they change it, we change ours. The UK government think that is a step too far. So will they be able to find a compromise today? As the Brexit minister said, time is running out.
Remember that oven-ready deal? For now, thank you. Returning to COVID now, and I get a view from the regions. More than 4 million people across Greater Manchester and parts of Lancashire have woken up this morning to extra support, but with stricter advice. And to help slow the spread of the Delta COVID variant, of course, the government is encouraging everyone in those areas to get the vaccine as soon as they can. Sadia Chowdhury joining us now from the Etihad Stadium, where a mass vaccination centre has been set up. Hello to you. Good morning. How's it being received there?
Good morning. Well, this is one of the larger vaccination sites in Manchester. It opened all the way back in January, and it's expected to be one of the places where we might see surge vaccination take place in the next few weeks. And that is, of course, because cases are rising here in parts of Manchester, Trafford, Tameside, Salford, all these places, more than doubling in COVID cases. In Stockport, the cases have nearly trebled. That's how serious it is. I was looking at the map yesterday. The quick summary is that it is getting worse. And yesterday, of course, Matt Hancock announced that extra package of support that will be given to places like this, and these are things that he says have worked in Bolton. And what we saw in Bolton, if you remember, is that they were door-to-door testing, and these are PCR tests which get sent off to those genome experts who can track where that variant is, but also things like bringing in the army and letting local authorities have the discretion on whether or not secondary school students should carry on wearing face masks.
Joining the police force in the 1980s, talking about Palm Sanders, she faced racism and sexism at work. Despite that challenge, I should say, she rose through the ranks to become the highest-ranking female Asian officer in the Metropolitan Police. However, new research shows despite legislative change, which I can never say, legislative change, sexism and racism are still prevalent in the British workplace today. Well, we're lucky to have Palm with us this morning. Alongside her is investigative journalist Stuart Preble, the co-author of Palm's book, Black and Blue. Hello to you both. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning. Palm, if I can ask you, first of all, tell me about why you wanted to write this book.
I thought it was important that I share my experiences because there are people that I would still encourage to join now. And I think it's really important that everyone considers the police service as a viable career. The only way you can make change is to be being part of that organisation.
And Stuart, I mean, obviously very well-known face to lots of journalists and people watching television. Many of our viewers this morning will know of your work. What happened for you to take the time to get involved and help Palm? Why did you want to get involved?
Well, I've known Palm for about 10 years, and you know how it is when people are sort of sitting around the dinner table or chatting, and people are telling their anecdotes, and everybody would tell their stories, and then Palm would tell something about her routine life or her early life when she was the child of first-generation immigrants who spoke no English and was into a forced marriage. And there were so many of these things that were just kind of completely jaw-dropping when she would tell them. But she would tell them just in a very matter-of-fact sort of way. And I said to her a number of times, really, you need to write this down. And she would say, well, I'm too busy. And anyway, I don't think I'm all that special. So I said, well, let me help you with that, because this is an extraordinary story that really does need to be told.
What sort of experiences can you share with us, Palm, this morning that have helped shape your career? What sort of discrimination have you had to face?
I can share one of my very early experiences, which was going out on patrol with a fellow officer and being called the P word, and then my fellow officer defending me. And at that time, I thought that was great because I was part of the team, I'd been accepted. But the officer then went on to say, only we are allowed to call her that P word, you're not. So members of the police service were allowed to call me that P word, but not members of the public. And that was back in the 1990s. But then if you bring the clock forward and you move forward to 2018, I was vetted to the highest standard through security service. So I went through that vetting procedure, which was very intensive and very intrusive. And then to get access to New Scotland Yard, to a particular floor in New Scotland Yard, I then got an email to say, can you come and discuss your Indian heritage? And the first question I was asked at that point, and this is 2018, was how often do you go back? At that point, I said, well, what, go back to Handsworth in Birmingham? Is that what you're asking me? But they meant go back to the Punjab, which is where my parents are from. So even though, 30 years have elapsed, that racism, that overt racism is still there. And although I'm not saying that the individual who sent me that email was racist, what I am saying is that the policies and the practices are still racist within the Metropolitan Police Service.
Stuart, I'm just looking at some figures. A quarter of UK adults have been a victim of sexism in the workplace. More than 10% have experienced racism at work, as we heard there from Palm. Are you surprised in 2021 that we're still having to have these conversations?
Well, it's shocking by any standards. And when you think you go back sort of 25 years till the murder of Stephen Lawrence and the personal inquiry, and if you just look in the period since then, there have probably been 7 or 8 major inquiries, independent inquiries, House of Commons Select Committee of one kind or another. And they all say exactly the same thing, that there's some good intentions and there are some changes of rules and people are trying to learn some better practices. But underneath, there is a permafrost, which is to do with a culture of organizations really being run by middle-aged white men who want to perpetuate the old boy network. And if you have a black or Asian face in the Met, my feeling is, and there are many, many examples that we talk about in the book, if you keep your head down and you don't mind and you put up with daily gratuitous racism or sexism of one kind or another, you can be fine. On the day that you make any complaint of any kind, the system turns against you in a way that really I think most people would find shocking. And this is what happened to Palm, which is one of the things that makes her story so extraordinary. But it's an absolute pattern of behaviour that's happened a number of times that we talk about in detail in the book.
Yeah, Black and Blue is the new book. Palm and Stuart, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning. Good luck with the book. I'm sure it was incredibly difficult to relive so many of those experiences, Palm, but you were in very good hands with Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Let's take you back to politics now. Labour is urging the Prime Minister to end what they call a catalogue of chaos on education. We'll talk about it, shall we, with the Shadow Education Secretary, Kate Green, who is with us now. Hello to you. Tell us about this new initiative. What are you hoping to achieve as the opposition?
So today we're calling a vote in Parliament, asking MPs to back a plan for children to recover from the pandemic, a plan that we've put together, but which is very similar to what the government's own advisor, Kevin Collins, advised. But of course, he resigned last week and discussed when the government would only commit to spending 10% of what he had said is needed. And we are saying that although children are resilient and excited to be back in class and with their friends and their teachers, clearly there has been an impact on them. Parents and teachers have talked to us a lot about the impact on their social and emotional well-being, and that's why we've proposed, and Kevin Collins talked about, offering extracurricular activities after school to help them to play and learn and develop, and also, of course, to make up lost learning. They have spent many months, in some cases, out of the classroom, and while we know that teachers have done an amazing job and parents have supported homeschooling, it is right that children do get help to catch up on the learning that they've lost, and that's why we are also calling for a recovery premium, a boost to the pupil premium, particularly so that teachers can give extra attention to those children who need more learning support. How much is that going to cost? So our package of proposals, and we've costed it really carefully, Kay, and published it so people can have a look at all the details, adds up to £14.7 billion. Kevin Collins himself, the government's advisor who resigned last week, called for £15 billion. The government has announced that it will spend £1.5 billion, 10% of what we and Kevin Collins believe is needed. I know it's a lot of money, but the cost of not doing this, apart from it being deeply unfair to children and young people, who really ought to be our priority as we're coming out of the pandemic, but we also know from think tanks that the cost of not investing in children and young people now will amount to many, many more hundreds of billions of pounds of cost for our economy, from lost earnings, from poor productivity and so on down the years. So it's a false economy and the wrong choice, really, for Rishi Sunak not to be making this investment in children and young people now.
I suppose he would say, where on earth am I going to find that sort of money from? And when we speak to him, we'll ask him. In the meantime, children being protected from COVID-19, they were wearing face masks until Monday. They're not anymore expected to. Is that the right decision? Because there has been an increase in cases.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm an MP in Greater Manchester, where we're now subject to stricter advice and where we're also asking for more support. I absolutely support Mayor Andy Burnham's call for the government to help us with surge vaccination and surge supplies for testing so that we can really get this spread of the infection in Greater Manchester and in other parts of the country under control. And I do think that face masks are an important mitigation and one that I would expect schools, certainly in Greater Manchester, but actually probably in many parts of the country now, to think perhaps calling for them not to be worn in school is premature. I think if the government's got good evidence that we don't need them anymore, it needs to really make that clear to parents and to school staff. I would certainly support any head teacher who says that they believe that face masks should still be needed in school, at least while we go through this period of trying to manage down the rise in the infection rate.
Are you planning a foreign holiday this year?
No, I'm not, Kay. I haven't got a foreign holiday booked. And I have to say, I really would be very reluctant to go through an airport and to travel abroad, partly because, of course, we've got no idea. The government changes the list of countries on the green and amber lists at short notice, and clearly nobody wants that kind of disruption and cost. But I just think the responsible thing to do this year is not to go abroad unless you have a very good reason, a very important need to do so. And I certainly have absolutely no plans to take a holiday outside the country this year.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining. Why would you want to if you're in God's own country in the northwest there? Thanks very much indeed.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to talk about where we are with Decision Day, Freedom Day as it's being called, COVID-19 vaccinations, etc., etc. Someone who is very up on all of this information is David Nabarro. He is the Special Envoy on COVID-19 for the World Health Organization and Chair of Global Health at Imperial College, and he's joining us now. Hello to you.
Hello, long time no see. I hope you're well.
Indeed, I am. I hope you are too. Tell me about what you think about the 21st of June being the day that we will potentially finally unlock. Should that happen?
Well, certainly life has to go on, and the last thing any of us want is to have people needing to go on restricting their lives. But this virus has not gone away. In some ways, it's lurking and just waiting to strike again. And so I want to suggest to everybody, please be really, really careful. By all means, governments should be releasing restrictions, but it's really up to people everywhere to organise their lives to minimise the amount of contact they have with others, and to, I agree with the last speaker, wear their face masks and just keep that protection going. You know, it's not a big thing to do, to mask yourself, and we want to ask people to go on doing that and go on being careful, because this virus is just very, very dangerous and it's very present.
What would a 2 or 4 week delay, what difference would that make? What would it achieve, do you think, David?
Well, I'm trying, Kay, to again really reiterate that it can't be just about restrictions. The future for humanity is going to require that we adapt our lifestyles so that we make it hard for this virus to spread. I mean, we know that the virus is constantly changing, which means that although vaccination is a marvellous, marvellous asset, it's not going to be enough. We are going to have to continue to behave as though the virus is an ever-present threat. So by all means, let the restrictions be released, but at the same time, could I encourage everybody everywhere to go on behaving carefully, because at school, at the university, in the pub, in the restaurant, in the social club, the virus is still going to be around, and it can come back with a huge surge very, very quickly.
Boris Johnson, you'll know, has committed to help vaccinate the entire globe by the end of next year. Gordon Brown, pretty disparaging, saying his plan is just a wing and a prayer. Nobody's safe until everybody is safe. What do we need to do to make sure everyone's vaccinated?
Well, first of all, Kay, I am absolutely delighted that the British Prime Minister has made this a kind of call to action, really, for the world to get vaccinated by the end of next year. And he's going to use his leadership of the G7 group of nations to make this point. So I think, like many, I am hoping that this weekend at Colwys Bay, world leaders in the G7 will just say very clearly, we are going to work together to make sure that the world is vaccinated adequately by the end of 2022. That would be a gift to generations to come, and it's the kind of leadership that really we're expecting and hoping to see in the coming weeks.
But you heard what Gordon Brown said, just to reiterate that point. He was saying, yeah, it's good to say that, but actually putting it into practice is pretty challenging. And one of the ways to do it is a jab in the developed world. And every time that happens, there should be another one in the developing world.
Of course. I mean, I think what Mr. Brown is saying is super sensible, but there are many people offering advice. I mean, the reality is that it'll be a massive undertaking to ensure that everybody has access to vaccine. It'll be a massive undertaking to make sure that enough vaccine is available and that vaccines are constantly modified in the light of new variants emerging. But Kay, this is doable. It's not, in the big scheme of things, a massive expenditure. It just requires everybody saying, we're going to work together on this job. I know that sounds easy to say, but I actually believe it's going to happen.
OK. You know I can't let you go without asking about those grandchildren.
Oh, yes. Well, I still haven't seen Otto, but I had a great pic of him the other day. He's wonderful. But most important is that Max, the one we talked about before, Tom and Ellen's kid, he's walking now. He's just had his first birthday yesterday, and I'm super proud.
Oh, that's fantastic. Maybe you'll indulge us with some photographs next time we chat. It's good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Look after yourself. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.
His face lights up, doesn't he, when he talks about his grandchildren. Are we going to be happy about the weather today? Here's Kirsty.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. I think many of us will be happy with the weather today, and for the coming days, a little bit of sunshine just cheers everybody up. Might be a bit too hot for some. Not everyone's happy, of course. Temperatures rising quite quickly today in the strong sunshine. More cloud out to the north and the west. That's where we've got some weather fronts trying to come in, bringing with it some light rain and drizzle, maybe heavier rain for time in western Scotland. But across much of central and eastern England, holding on to the sunshine. So we're looking at around, say, 26 or 27. Very high UV and increasing grass pollen levels to watch out for. Possibly the odd shower from the Midlands, northern England. Mostly dry night tonight, but quite a lot of cloud rolling in from the west. Bit of a muggy one as well, and more sunshine to come tomorrow.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.